morning, and you're welcome to this morning's Signpost webinar, which is brought to you in association with Dairy Sustainability Ireland, Food Drink Ireland, SkillNet, and the National Rural Network. I'm coming to you this morning from a nice, bright, but very soggy Wexford. We've had a lot of rain in the last few days, so it's nice to see the sun again. I'm joined this morning by Rebecca Davis and Mollie Burns from Leaf. Delighted that you could join us. Rebecca, you might just give us a very brief description of Leaf, what it does and what its objectives are.
Yeah, morning everybody. Like that said, I'm Rebecca Davis. I'm Technical Coordinator within the IFM team at Leaf. Leaf, I suppose, in one sentence, our ambition and aim is to deliver more sustainable farming, food and food systems through the implementation of integrated farm management. And I'll talk lots more about that in the webinar. And
Mollie, you might just introduce yourself, and you're based, I think, in the Midlands in the UK.
Yes, so hi, my name is Mollie, and I am a technical officer on the Leaf Marque team.
Okay, so two aspects of it, the Leaf and Leaf Marque, and we'll be getting both of those in the presentation. So I suppose without further ado, I'll get you to share your presentation, and let's have a description of the organization, what you do and what you're achieving.
Yeah, share my screen now.
Okay, that's perfect.
Yeah, we can see that. Brilliant. So yeah, like I said, morning everybody. It's great to be here. Thank you for the invitation. The webinar this morning is really about a background to Leaf, so our achievements so far, our activities and our aspirations. Like I said, my name is Rebecca, and I sit within the Integrated Farm Management team as a technical coordinator, and then my colleague here, Mollie, technical officer within the Leaf Marque team. So we'll be sharing the presentation today. A quick outline of today's session. So I'll start off just sort of talking a little bit about who Leaf are and what is integrated farm management, then touching upon the Leaf network and the work that we do and some of the projects that we're a part of. And then I'll hand over to Mollie, who will talk us through the Leaf Marque Assurance Scheme. And then we'll finish off with our strategy and our ambitions and commitment for the future. And then, of course, there's some time afterwards for questions. So who are Leaf? Leaf, linking environment and farming. We are a leading organisation delivering and promoting climate positive farming through sort of regenerative and nature-based solutions, and that's through integrated farm management. We work with stakeholders across the whole industry, really. So we work with farmers, we work with researchers, policy, public, consumers, and the sort of aim is to look at how to deliver productivity and prosperity, looking at how to enrich the environment and engaging people, not just young people, but society in a whole. A little bit about our history. So we were set up just over 30 years ago now, in 1991, so we celebrated our 30th anniversary last year, and we started off as a 3-year project. So we've come quite a long way since then. Our late CEO Caroline Drummond really drove the organisation Leaf as who we are today. We're a registered charity, so we have a board of trustees and our honorary president, Her Royal Highness the Countess of Wessex. We are also a membership-based organisation. So Leaf itself was set up in 1991. And then in 2002, Leaf Marque, our assurance scheme, was born. And then 2006, we had Open Farm Sunday piloting, and that's happened every year ever since. Through lockdown, we managed to do online Farm Sunday. So moving forwards now, we'll be doing the two alongside each other. So it's been really nice to get back out on the farm this year, doing Open Farm Sundays in person. We are global, so Leaf, the organisation, in terms of the work that we do and the research and the projects we are a part of, work at the European level as well as other countries. And then from a Leaf Marque point of view, we are in 19 countries. And more recently, so a few years ago, we merged with the organisation FACE to create Leaf Education. And they're who run Open Farm Sunday. You can imagine Leaf splitting into 3 key work streams. So there's the knowledge generation and exchange work stream, and that's where I sit, that's where my team sits, so the IFM team. That's all about, as it says on the tin, knowledge generation and exchange. So we have the LEAF network of demonstration farms, innovation centres, and more recently the beacons of excellence. And I guess that's kind of one of the main ethos behind LEAF, is that farmer to farmer learning and that ability to demonstrate knowledge and learn from each other. So we hold a lot of events, on-farm events and training events, where our members and farmers can come out and learn from each other and share knowledge. We also have our market opportunities workstream. So that's where Mollie sits within the LEAF Marque team. And again, as it says on the tin, it's all about market opportunities and recognising the good work that our farmers are doing, but through implementing integrated farm management. And then finally, as I said previously, we recently have education and engaging society. So on the next couple of slides, you'll see the IFM wheel. And one of those sections is about engaging society. So it's a really core part of the work that LEAF do and integrated farm management. So it's not just about schools and school children in terms of that sort of age. It's not just primary, it's the whole school. So going up to 16, 17, 18, working with those children, as well as members of the public and educating consumers. And really, it's just about getting the message of sustainable farming and, where does food come from, and trying to bring everyone back in touch with their food and respecting their food again. So I've talked quite a lot about integrated farm management, but what is it? It's a whole farm approach, farming approach, business approach. And the aim is to deliver more sustainable farming. It looks at the 3 pillars of sustainability, so economic, environmental, and social health. And this is what I mean by the wheel, the IFM wheel. So it's made up of 9 key areas. So you've got things like organisation and planning, landscape and nature conservation, energy efficiency, pollution control, and byproduct management. And it's, like I said, whole farm and site specific, in that what works for one farm's problem isn't necessarily going to work for the same problem on another farm. So it's recognising that site specificity and looking at that continuous improvement. It's a mindset approach. So the way that we like to talk about it is more of a framework, and you can apply that framework to any business. It's also sort of key here to mention that not one area of integrated farm management is more important than another. So you can't just focus on your soil management and fertility and forget about the other areas, because of the connectedness and the symbiosis between all of these areas. So you can't have soil management without looking after your water, without looking after your landscape and nature, without being organised and having your plans and policies in place. Like I said, it's whole farm. It's about attention to detail on your business. So it's site specific, and it's a combination. So it's not all about using the most modern technologies and looking for what's new. Of course, that's part of it, but it's also looking at those traditional methods and what has worked for you previously. If it's working, there's no reason to not do that. It's just about optimizing those methods. So through the implementation of integrated farm management, we're delivering prosperous farming, environmental enrichment, we're engaging our local communities, and it's all about continuous improvement. So it's about setting targets, and then have you met those targets? If so, great, let's set more. If we haven't met those targets, why not? What can we do to meet them next time? A little bit now about our network. So we have a network, like I said, of demonstration farms and innovation centres. Our demonstration farms are all commercial working farms. And I like to sort of talk about them as ambassadors of LEAF, ambassadors of integrated farm management. We've got over 40 now in the UK, and we are looking at branching out to be more international with our demonstration farms. So like I said, they are commercial, they are working, but at the same time, they are delivering the best of integrated farm management. They're delivering the best of the farming industry. So as a whole business, they're doing really well, but also they're focusing on individual aspects. So there's a big long list there. I'm not going to read that out, don't worry, but some examples. I've got quite a few looking quite in detail about agroforestry, implementing nature-based solutions, looking at rewilding, We've got a couple of our demonstration farms working with a small robot company here in England, looking at electric weed control and robotic weed control, robotic harvesting and things like that. And then with our innovation centres, so we've got, I think there's about 14 innovation centres now, again in the UK, spread across the UK. And they are organisations like ourselves, so NGOs, or they might be universities or other research institutes. And they are really driving research behind integrated farm management. And again, on the right here is a list of some of the things that they're focusing on. And together, the LEAF network, so the demonstration farms and the innovation centres, they work together, they share knowledge. So you've got the innovation centres passing down sort of top level research to us and to our demonstration farms, and also our demonstration farms passing up information about what's working on the ground and what's realistic. So they work together and they drive forward sustainable agriculture. And then finally from me, before I pass over to Mollie to talk about the LEAF Marque Assurance Scheme, it's just a bit of an example of the projects that we're working on, so our activities. On this slide, there's just lots of logos of all the projects. So some of these projects are LEAF education. So over here, we've got Teagasc, which is on-farm training. So that's training for farmers to do farm visits, whether that's sort of like care farm, therapeutic visits or educational visits. They also do Open Farm Sunday. So for those of you that might not be aware of what that is, one Sunday a year, the farms open up to the public. That can be maybe 10 members of the public coming out for a farm walk for half an hour, for an hour. We have some farms doing that, or it can be on the other end. We've had sort of farms open and 3,000 members of the public come out, and they have lots of different activities on. And it's just about getting the public and consumers back in touch with farming and respecting the work that farmers are doing and understanding the work that our farmers are doing and how they're producing the food that we're eating. Some of the other projects are UK based. So for example, we have Resilient and Ready. So that's in partnership with Corteva. And that's looking at, we have applications, and then we're working with a few farms on becoming more resilient businesses, and they're working towards LEAF Marque and becoming demonstration farms. And then again, we've got Beacons of Excellence. So that's another network that we're developing. And the first Beacon of Excellence group cohort that we have are in regenerative agriculture, and we're working to develop more of those Beacons of Excellence. And then there's some of the UK projects there. And then on top of that, we work on a lot of Horizon 2020 projects, now Horizon Europe. So that's European funded projects. So, and again, that's quite a wide plethora of topics. So we've got things from cover crops, IPM hubs, agri-capture CO2 down here. That's looking at regenerative agriculture and the carbon market and how to measure and monitor carbon within the soil. And then from a LEAF Marque point of view, we work with ICEAL as well. So just a really brief sort of overview, nice overview of the work, the history of LEAF, our work streams, and some of the work that we're currently doing. I'm now going to hand over to Mollie to talk about the LEAF Marque Assurance Scheme, and then we'll finish off just on a couple of slides looking at LEAF's vision for the future and our commitments. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky. Okay, so LEAF Marque is a leading global assurance system recognising more sustainably farmed products. As mentioned, it is based on the sustainable farming principles of integrated farm management, which covers areas such as soil and water management, pollution control, crop health, animal welfare, community engagement, energy efficiency, and landscape and nature conservation. Our assurance system ensures that LEAF Marque is robust, credible, and independent. So our LEAF Marque certified businesses are audited annually by third-party certification bodies. LEAF is also a full code-compliant member of the International Social Environmental Accreditation and Labelling Alliance, ICEAL, which ensures that LEAF Marque is robust in our standard setting, our monitoring, and our assurance approaches as a sustainability system. Leaf Marque also has earned recognition from the Environment Agency and has engagement with the Environmental Land Management Scheme, also known as ELMS, and other upcoming and exciting projects. So what does integrated farm management mean in the context of Leaf Marque? So there are a few points that are defining features of Leaf Marque certification. The first is integrated farm management being a whole farm approach. Now, this translates into Leaf Marque certification by the Leaf Marque standard being relevant to all enterprises. So the Leaf Marque standard is the document that certified businesses are assessed against, and it is relevant to all sectors of integrated farm management. We also have a number of not applicable sections, for example, animal husbandry, which enables it to be adaptable to different contexts and also different scenarios. The second point is that integrated farm management is, as Becky has said, site-specific, and we enable that in the Leaf Marque standard by it being plan-based. So most sections of the standard require a management plan, and the intention of that is to enable recognition of the practices that are relevant to that business and gives the opportunity to define and implement them. There are, however, some practice-based requirements that would be universal across all farms, such as health and safety risk assessments and staff training. We also have the 10% habitat area and also an annual energy audit. And finally, there is continuous improvement. Now, this is enabled by target setting and evaluation from a Leaf Marque certification perspective. It's also to take note of what has been achieved and whether the objectives need to be amended. Now, these can be more or less ambitious, and the business should reflect on those each year. The general format of the Leaf Marque standard is that in each section, apart from organisation and planning and engaging society, there are control points relevant to monitoring activities, planning activities, and specific activities that are integral to that section of integrated farm management. Okay, so moving on to the journey to Leaf Marque. So the first step on a business's journey to Leaf Marque certification is to become a member of Leaf Charity. So the charity membership is based on farm size, and a membership payment is made directly to Leaf. Now, once the business is a member of Leaf the Charity, there are no time limits on preparing to become Leaf Marque certified, but it does depend on where the business is starting from and what timescale the farmer is given. The business will then be asked to complete the LSFR, the Leaf Sustainable Farming Review, which is an online self-assessment tool. Now, the LSFR is a great introduction to the principles of integrated farm management because it goes into a significant amount of detail regarding all aspects of integrated farm management. And if the business reach is fully achieved in several areas, then they are on their way to being ready for Leaf Marque certification. The third step is to continue working on implementing integrated farm management. So this is an ongoing process where the business will aim for continuous improvement over time and monitor their progress. And once the business feels ready to be certified, then they will contact a certification body and request an audit. And during the audit, the auditor will verify whether the business is meeting the requirements of the Leaf Marque standard. Now, this can happen in conjunction with or separately to the baseline system audit, such as Red Tractor or Global Gap. But the majority of businesses choose to combine them due to a joint audit discount. Any non-conformances identified during the audit must be resolved in either 28 days if it is a recertification audit, or within 3 months if it's the business's first audit, and evidence to close those non-conformances will be submitted to the certification body and then approved. And then if approved, a Leaf Marque certificate is issued, and this is effective for 12 months. And then the cycle continues. We like to think of this as an ongoing cycle of continuous improvement. So we don't frame it as a tick box exercise, because that's not what it's meant to be. It's about having that mindset where the business can always be improving, and what improvement looks like is specific to that business. So the standard requirements can be implemented to different degrees over time, depending on where the business is. So moving on to the Leaf Marque standard. So the Leaf Marque standard is based on the principles of integrated farm management, and there are 9 sections that correspond to each of those 9 areas, as we've discussed. The Leaf Marque standard lists all the requirements that the business needs to meet to become Leaf Marque certified. And it's important to note, as I've already highlighted, that Leaf Marque certification is additional to approved baseline systems such as Red Tractor and Global Gap. So there needs to be a baseline certification for all of the business's products. A Leaf Marque certification is based on a whole farm approach and must cover all enterprises. We also try to make the standard as accessible as possible. So it's available in English, French, Italian, Spanish, and for version 16, Portuguese. The Leaf Marque standard also contains background information and links to guidance documents to help businesses meet the Leaf Marque requirements. So those can be management plan guidance and, as of recently, management plan templates. Also guidance for terminology such as climate resilience, collaboration, collective action, and so on. The standard is reviewed every 3 to 5 years. So as of the 1st of October 2022, so this year, we've just published our version 16 and are now working on version 17. However, the standard is not effective until 1st of April 2023, meaning businesses have 6 months to adapt their farming practices to meet those requirements. To be Leaf Marque certified, all essential control points must be achieved, and this can be seen from the E icon in the 3rd column. So if the column contains an E, then this is an essential control point and must be achieved to be compliant with standard. The standard is also hybrid outcome based, so there are outcomes alongside the existing practice-based approach. Now this creates an opportunity for Leaf to communicate more closely on the impacts of implementing the Leaf Marque standard, measuring outcomes directly rather than proxying them with practices. And as Becky has stated, it's also global and relevant to all enterprises. We should also state that we work alongside members from a diverse range of backgrounds in what is called a technical advisory committee that oversees the ongoing development of the Leaf Marque standard. So in there we have producers, market facers, so these could be retailers, brands, processors. We also have environmental and industry expertise and also permanent observers, so in this case UCAS. And also influencing the Leaf Marque standard is the feedback received from stakeholders during the public consultation. So the public consultation is to ensure all stakeholders have sufficient time and opportunity to provide input on revisions of the standard, and also ensures stakeholders see how their input has been considered. So within Leaf Marque, we monitor and evaluate the impacts of Leaf Marque growers. So every year we publish our Global Impacts Report, which describes what Leaf Marque certified businesses are doing and what they have achieved. So the Global Impact Report also presents approaches Leaf Marque farmers are taking to implement more sustainable farming practices. So as of this year, there are currently 877 Leaf Marque certified businesses across 19 different countries, producing 279 different crop classes on over 310,500 hectares of land. And a total of 48% of UK fruit and veg are now grown on Leaf Marque certified farms. And just to give a bit of context, some of the top crops grown on Leaf Marque certified farms include wheat, potato, barley, lettuce, maize, broccoli, onions, oilseed rape, sugar beet, cauliflower, carrots, and peas. And as part of that report, Leaf Marque farmers also tell us what type of regenerative practices they are implementing on their farm, how they are improving their soil management, and the steps they are taking to reduce their carbon footprint. So last year, for example, 44% of farmers reported that they are now using a carbon footprinting tool to track and record direct emissions from their farm.
Thank you, Mollie. So that was just a nice overview of Leaf Marque, what the standard's about, and how to become Leaf Marque certified and the impact of that standard and that assurance scheme. So I'm just going to finish off briefly. We've got a couple of minutes, but that's okay, on our vision and our ambition for the future. So our vision as an organisation, deliver positive action for climate, nature, economy and society. That's for farming and the food sector. We're aiming to play a demonstrable part in transforming farming and food systems. So we're going to build on our work since Leaf was established and delivering that through agroecological and regenerative approaches. Our 10-year strategy outlines 8 commitments for the future. So building on Leaf's core capabilities and strengths, we're going to continue to drive collective action with shared ambition amongst all stakeholders. So that's our members, our industry partners, young people, wider society, and our key stakeholders. And we're going to deliver against our 8 commitments, which I'll talk about briefly in a minute, through our work streams and core themes. So our 3 core work streams being knowledge generation and exchange, education, engaging society, and market opportunity, all through the lens of looking at health, enrichment and diversity and developing that. So our 8 commitments for the future. We will deliver climate positive solutions. So we're going to develop and disseminate IFM, integrated farm management, advancing whole farm systems to embrace regenerative and nature-based solutions. We will create more beacons of excellence. So we're going to strengthen our network of demonstration farms and innovation centres and create platforms that support beacons of excellence within farming. So like I've mentioned previously, we already have our cohort of regenerative beacons of excellence, and we're working towards the next cohort, looking at water management. And again, in the future, we're going to be looking at circular agriculture, net zero, zero plastic waste. We will support the measurement of impact and harmonisation of metrics. So building on science and innovations to identify practices, looking at monitoring methods, technology, and developing partnerships to construct outcome and impact-based measurements. We will build sustainable food chains, so strengthen the opportunities in the marketplace through Leaf Marque to provide a reward for farmers, and it also creates an opportunity for consumers to make that informed choice, which develops that shared value for consumers and society. We're also going to grow and strengthen education and engaging society. So we want to positively influence the future generations about agriculture. We want them to support farming, the industry. We want them to support food production. We want them to support the environment. So we're going to deliver stimulating and inspiring opportunities. We will cultivate sustainable health and well-being. So we want to position farmers in the food sector as part of the solution to delivering more sustainable health and well-being, building on the existing networks and creating new networks and solutions. So looking at training to drive leadership and practical solutions, putting farming at centre stage. We will build more connections and strengthen our connections, so working smarter and more collaboratively. And finally, scale up our reach. So we want to create pathways and drive transformative change at a significant scale within the UK and also globally. So our Leaf network of demonstration farms and innovation centres are currently in the UK, but our goal for the next 10 years is to develop that and scale that up and have international demonstration farms and innovation centres. And then finally, if I pass to you, Mollie.
Yes, so here are some links to things that we've discussed that might be useful to you. These are also available on the website amongst other useful links, so please do have a look if you're interested.
Okay, that's really, really good. And we have questions flying in, and just to remind people to use the Q&A to send in their questions. I suppose just one of the first things, how is I suppose the advantage and the benefit of being in Leaf generated from the marketplace, or to what degree is Leaf known to consumers and customers?
Yeah, so there's, I guess, two aspects to that, in that there's Leaf, the organisation, and the work that we do, and then Leaf Marque, the assurance scheme. So Leaf Marque, the assurance, one of our recent, we have independent evaluations every couple of years looking at the impact of our standard and our assurance scheme. And it highlighted that, I think it was, of the people surveys, it was just under 50% recognised what the Leaf Marque stood for, which is really positive. But again, it's always about scaling up. So we want to do better and do more. From a Leaf point of view, in terms of the organisation, because of the engagement we have with schools and from the education side of things, we are quite well known here in England anyway. And one thing I didn't mention was farmer time. So that's where we pair up school classrooms with farmers, and that's in the UK, Sweden, Norway, Australia. So there's different benefits. Our members are not just farmers. You can be a corporate member, you can be an education member. So there's this, we deliver different things depending on your industry that you're sat within. Okay,
and I suppose one of the questions coming in is about the numbers of membership. You described the process of membership. I think one thing that there's a bit of curiousness about is that the costing and the funding model for the organisation. Is it purely from members' funding, or are there other streams of funding that you can generate?
It's other streams. So membership, like I said, you have different formats of membership. You can have individual farmer membership, and that is based on the land that you manage or own, essentially. So I think it's starting from £130 a year and goes up depending on the size of farm. And then we also have corporate membership, education membership. All those prices differ, they're on the website. But yeah, we're not solely funded by membership. We're very fortunate to have quite a lot of sponsors that support the work that Leaf do. We have sponsorships come in, and then also I mentioned some of those projects on the previous slide. That's where we get some of our funding from. So whether that's UK or European funding, the work that we do on those projects.
And I suppose a specific, the European funding and the Horizon, is that still as open to you as it was before Brexit? It's still, yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's just a slightly different process. So whereas before we'd claim the money directly from government, we from the European Commission, we now have to claim it from the government, and they have to claim it from the Commission. So we've still got access.
No, a lot of questions coming in, a lot of interest there.
Yeah, absolutely. Very interesting talk this morning from you both. So look at, I suppose, just maybe following on from that question that Pat had there, kind of tied in together. Obviously, you have a strong base in the UK, but how much of have you managed to get into Europe and into the world market? And has the Brexit issue, has that impacted your ability to get into Europe any bit? So that was just two questions there, kind of joined together.
Mollie, do you want to talk from a Leaf Marque point of view, and then I'll talk about research opportunities?
Do you want to go first?
Yeah, I can do. So from a research opportunity point of view, it really hasn't affected our ability to carry that on and our relationship. So we are quite fortunate in having the Horizon projects that we've been a part of previously. Obviously, we've made those relationships and we've got those networks now already. So, and we're in a really good place, a really nice place that people approach us to support them in projects. I don't think it would be fair to say that we've seen a decline in interest since Brexit at all. And then obviously in terms of England, with our ELM scheme, our environmental land management scheme, there's been quite a few opportunities with tests and trials around that. And from a Leaf Marque point of view, just before Mollie answers, we're in 19 countries still. We're also partnering, so we're with Tesco, Waitrose, Marks and Spencer's, Aldi. I always get mixed up, Aldi and Lidl, so sorry, one of those. So we've got growers coming in through the retailers, supplying retailers as well. So we're in a really strong position.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same.
Okay. Okay, so that's good. And I suppose then just maybe to delve a little bit into the actual process of developing the farm plan. Maybe Mollie, you could delve into that a little bit. How is it the farmer that decides, or is it the advisor that decides, or how does that interaction work?
I think it's a combination of both. So it is context site specific. So the standard is tailored to all different farms. We have management plans, as I've said, which for most of the sections, which help structure the farm practices. So people must adhere to those. But like I said, it is site specific, and people can adapt to those different practices. And the certification bodies know of that process as well.
And we say, obviously you're continually improving, so I presume that there's a kind of the bar keeps rising. So the first year you wouldn't necessarily be asking the farmer to do everything. How does that work? How do you set the targets for a farmer every year? And I suppose what are the standards that allowing yourselves to? Are they the EU standards, or the international standards, or the British standards? What is the baseline standard that you're kind of working off?
So Mollie, do you want to take that, or do you want me to?
No, you go first.
So the Leaf Marque standard, Mollie mentioned it previously, is you need a baseline scheme. So there needs to be, whether that's sort of like Global Gap, Red Tractor, there needs to be that baseline for Leaf Marque to add on top of, essentially. So it is about continuous improvement, but there are essential control points. So if it's your first audit and your first time becoming Leaf Marque, you still have to meet all of those essential control points. You still need to have a baseline scheme. But our control points are not set in that they, for example, soil organic matter or soil quality, the control point just references that you need to be improving. There needs to be an aim to improve soil quality. We're not saying that your soil organic matter needs to be X%, Y%. So the auditor is looking for evidence of practices and justification of your targets, not so much looking for actual figures, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And then in terms of baseline, like Mollie says, our standard goes through revisions. So that's the TAC, so the Technical Advisory Committee. There's a public consultation. So there's quite a huge involvement and a huge amount of work that goes into developing the standard. So we've just released version 16. We're now working on version 17 of the standard, which is going to be released in a year or 2 years. So it's a constant process.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
And just to add on top of that, the targets can be more or less ambitious, as I've said. And if you do have any unforeseen circumstances that make the results not as good as you expected, that's fine, as long as you let us know. It's totally fine. As long as we're seeing some continuous improvement over time. But yeah.
And I suppose there's one very specific one about agroforestry, and would it be possible to expand on the agroforestry options on a farm, and how has this worked out?
Yeah, so the agroforestry plots that are on our demonstration farm, so I've been to one of them, and he's quite fortunate in that they're a big estate. So, and he has the support of the landowner. So he can turn around and say, I'd like to trial this, and the landowner will say, yeah, that's absolutely fine. So there is, we do have to recognise that is a privilege to have that opportunity. In terms of how it works with integrated farm management, it's really difficult to explain. It's what works for your business. If you want to try it and you have the resources available to trial it, then go for it. There's nothing within the standard necessarily that says you have to implement agroforestry. It's a method that can be used. We talk about it within the Leaf Sustainable Farming Review. So when we look at nature-based solutions and more sustainable practices, it's something that's referenced, and it's part of some of the research that we're doing. Well, we're a part of in those big projects. That they can, if people are really interested, on our website there's a few resources around agroforestry, and if they look on the Leaf Network map, you can sort of highlight the demonstration farms with specific niches. So you can highlight agroforestry and it will take you to that farm's site and that case study.
You mentioned there the demo farms, and I suppose one of the questions that's come in is how do you support and coordinate the demo farms? What do you give them to make them that bit special to be demo farms?
So there's no sort of exchange of monies or anything like that, if that's what people are asking.
No, it's more I suppose, how are they, what makes them demo farms? How do they...
So it's a bit of a process. So they have to express an interest in becoming a demonstration farm. And then it's a process of looking through the application form, their reasonings as to why they want to become a demonstration farm, a farm visit for us to sort of see how they're implementing integrated farm management in terms of all aspects. So they need to be really strong on their community engagement and their public engagement, as well as all the other areas. And what the kind of the key thing for a demonstration farm is that really is their willingness to host events, to have people out on farm, to support the development of LEAF and integrated farm management. So it's just an application form essentially, on paper, I suppose. But once you've become a demonstration farm, it's about supporting integrated farm management, supporting other farmers, and being open to having other farmers come out to educate other farmers, to share knowledge.
And who does the work? For instance, if there's an event being organised on a demonstration farm, what does that look like? Is there a group of staff who come in and support that process, or am I left a little bit on my own to do that?
No, you're supported completely. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago, we delivered our integrated farm management training, our introduction to IFM training, and that was on one of our demonstration farms. And it was, this time around, it was me that delivered that and organised it. So it's a matter of approaching a demonstration farm and saying, are you available on this date or this date? Are you open to hosting? And then it's a bit of a mix really, because obviously the host needs to make sure that there's a room available, etc. And you quite often do farm tours, so they need to make sure that they've got that prepared, or a trailer prepared, or something like that. But in terms of the logistics, that's the LEAF team, that's us.
Okay, and I suppose that I'll hand back to Noel after this, but is there a linkage between the sustainability side of the inspection and inspection for food quality, food assurance?
No, so that's where your baseline scheme comes in. The LEAF Marque is, I want to say it's an environmental assurance scheme, but it is more than that. But it's sustainability primarily, yeah. So all that food security, sort of animal welfare, the legalities side of things, that is covered in your baseline scheme. LEAF Marque is that next level, looking at sustainability.
Okay, no.
Okay, I suppose just one or two more here. So typically, the recruitment of farmers come to you I presume it's you don't target farmers or any particular sector. It's very much farmers come to you guys.
Yeah, I mean, we do a lot of engagement, so we do a lot of talk. So if there's different events, so for example, the National Fruit and Veg Show happened this week. We were there. We had a stand. Groundswell, we have a stand. We do go out into industry events and talk about. So we do recruit farmers in that way, but generally they become aware of it. Yes.
Okay, very good. A specific question around the animal welfare point. So it's just a bit of a clarification for the listener. Can you help me understand your point on animal welfare? I'm not sure I understand it. Is it that LEAF doesn't deal with it, or is it covered with the Red Tractor or one of those other areas, or how is animal welfare dealt with under your programme?
So we have an animal husbandry section within our standard, which has animal welfare control points. However, that is supplementary to Red Tractor, who focus primarily on the animal welfare. So we go based on them.
Yeah, so they set the baseline standard and you add to it then.
Yeah, we add to it.
It is covered, yeah.
Yeah, okay, very good.
No, there's a question in there, and I suppose it alludes to, I suppose you talk about the relationship between farmers and non-farmers, and trying to putting a lot of work into developing that relationship. It's probably not at its highest point in recent times. And I suppose the question was, how do you plan to position farming and farmers as a solution to climate change?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? It's about education, I think, at the end of the day, and that's where LEAF comes in, and that's our point of view. It's educating consumers and the public. So the work that LEAF Education do is incredible. When there's Open Farm Sunday, for example, there's posters around talking about the different areas of IFM. We do quite a lot of notice boards, for example, and it's something we touch on when we do our training. It's quite a big session, excuse me, about how to develop those relationships and strengthen those relationships. And from our point of view, I think you need to work at the local level first. So whether that's going out to your village hall or to your local school and just saying, you know, this is what we're doing on farm this season and this is why we're doing it. And just starting that education at quite a small scale, but in the hopes that, you know, you can educate maybe 3 people and they can educate their family and 3 of their friends, and that it grows. So the power that an individual farmer has actually is quite huge. And another thing that LEAF do is support the training for our farmer members. We have a thing called Speak Out training, and it's just supporting farmers in how to maybe use social media to the best of their ability, how to respond to comments, because that's the other issue, isn't it? Social media, as great as it is, it has given voice to a lot of people. Yep. So it's how do we manage that, and how do we respond to comments?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Yeah, no, that was a question I was going to ask about, was that community engagement and the importance of that from a kind of an education and awareness point of view, and you've kind of that covered there very well. But I suppose just maybe going back to the farmer again, is it across a broad spectrum, all enterprises of farming, or do you find that it's more the fruit and vegetable growers as opposed to the livestock, or is there any kind of trends there that you would see, or any areas where you'd like to see a bump up in the number of farmers that are in it, or you know, what's your cohort of farmers that are in the program?
Mollie,
sorry, mind.
Sorry.
Did your internet break down there? Yeah, just what sort of farmers are interested? Is it across all enterprises, or are there areas where you'd like to see a greater number of farmers, that there might be a low uptake in a certain sector?
I think it is. There are a lot of horticultural growers, and we are, I think, looking for more livestock farmers. But I think in recent times we've seen an increase in both. Yeah, Becky, do you have anything
just to add? Just to echo that, I guess our biggest cohort of farmers in terms of the sector is horticulture, fresh fruit and fresh produce, basically.
Yeah.
But there's quite a few misconceptions around the idea that LEAF Marque isn't a livestock scheme, which isn't true. We just don't have many livestock farmers as part of LEAF Marque. So primarily fresh produce, horticulture, and then arable, some ornamental, and then I guess our smallest cohort would be livestock.
And is dairy? You include dairy in livestock?
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Okay.
There's a question here. Do you collaborate with farm consultants and others in the industry to try and engage more farmers, or to have them as if you want, ambassadors or people who will extend your message?
Yeah, so LEAF itself, we're not advisors or consultants. We are a charity looking to develop more sustainable farming, but we do work. We have a program of advisors and consultants. So we work with, like you suggested, advisors and consultants, and they go through sort of a bit of a process. They go through submitting evidence and interviews, and then they are sort of verified as LEAF advisors and consultants, so they can go out on farm and give general advice around sustainable farming, but then they can also reference integrated farm management and LEAF, and we will recognise that the advice they are giving is supported by us.
And there's, I suppose, a question there in terms of the incentive to farmers. Do farmers find themselves able to leverage the leaf and the leaf marque to increase the prices that they get, or what is the incentive for them?
So I guess there's a mixture. It's just general market opportunity. So when you are leaf marque certified, you can supply into a number of retailers, because more recently retailers are requiring the leaf marque scheme to supply into them. So there's that opportunity there. And then also, if you're not supplying into retailers, it's that mark, isn't it? It's that sort of a statement that you are sustainable. So a lot of our leaf marque farmers do box schemes and sort of supply to their local area rather than supplying into retailers, and through that they get more opportunities.
Okay, you in the map you showed on global, you're involved in a number of developing countries, and I'm just wondering, on the social side, and I suppose something we haven't talked about yet, is kind of ethical farming from one of the key aspects, particularly in those countries, but is it something that's considered in the UK and at European level as well?
Mollie, do you want to talk about the social audits and the leaf marque standard?
I think I'd have to give that question to my line manager.
Well, it's so that we reference that social audits have taken place. So it is organisation and planning. We talk about staff welfare and employment welfare. So in terms of sustainability, it's not just environmental and economical, it's social health as well. So there's the community engagement aspect, but then there's also your staff and your responsibility for your staff and your workers, whether that's physical health and safety, whether that's mental well-being. It is all covered within IFM and referenced within the leaf marque standard.
Yeah, and there's a couple of questions there in relation to measurement and to what degree, for instance, you mentioned yourself soil carbon content. To what degree are you measuring aspects of sustainability at farm level?
So our leaf marque, I'm sort of talking about it in two aspects: from the leaf point of view, from just being a farmer implementing IFM and driving sustainable farming forwards, and then from a leaf marque point of view. So if I address it from a leaf point of view first, there's no requirement to record that information as a leaf farmer. The Leaf Sustainable Farming Review is our online self-assessment management tool. So when you become a member of LEAF, you will get access immediately to this online self-assessment. Now, this online self-assessment is broken down into the different areas of integrated farm management, and they ask questions and provide guidance and supporting practices. So there's opportunity within that online review to input figures and data, and we will use that sort of as anonymously and aggregate it to provide impact reporting. But there's no requirement as such to do that. From a leaf marque point of view, there is a requirement to record it, but there is no threshold that is acceptable or unacceptable, because we want to recognise the complexity basically of farming, in that maybe one year you had really rough weather, or maybe one year you had to get the plough out. So it's not about saying that's good or bad. It's about, are you doing the right things for the right reasons? Hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, and just one there maybe on the other element of what you work on is education, and maybe you have partnerships and things going with universities around research. Could you maybe give us a flavour for what sorts of things you're looking at from that point of view, that you feel you need additional research and additional technologies for? Yeah,
so one thing that we're quite a lot of our demonstration farms are working with our innovation centres is looking at robots. Everyone's getting very excited around robots and robotic harvesting, robotic weed control. So it's looking at how to optimize productivity and use of inputs and resource use. And then another thing that's really big at the moment within the industry, I think globally, is looking at carbon credits. So it's looking at how to monitor and measure soil carbon and the impact of different practices. So sort of modelling how change in practice might impact soil carbon, and then being able to somehow quantify that carbon and giving it a financial figure. So we're looking quite, and that's from research in terms of universities, but also research projects through Horizon.
In terms of the publication, are all your standards published and available online? I think you did mention that there was a question in relation to that.
So version 15 and 16 are online now. Version 15 is live, as in what you're being audited against. Version 16 is available to look at, but it won't be audited against until April.
Okay, and I suppose there is we have a system of demonstration farm here in Ireland in relation to climate change and general sustainability called the Signpost Farm Programme, and the manager of the program is on. He's wondering, could he get a demonstration and possibly have a discussion with you at offline at a later stage. So I'm
of
sure
course.
we can that can be organised. In terms of the influence as to who sets the standards, are the farmers themselves involved in that process, or how do you come to deciding that something is a standard?
Yeah, so we have the public consultation, and also, as I said, we have the technical advisory committee, and part of those, some of those members are producers themselves. So they are farmers, and they have a say in what they feel is appropriate to have as a control point and the requirements, and that goes through quite a lengthy process. We have about 3 meetings every year, we've had about 4 meetings this year where they have their say, and that's also alongside, you know, the environment and industry expertise and retailers, and also obviously permanent observers to make sure that it's okay to publish. But yeah, producers have a massive say in the standard setting.
Yeah.
Okay.
We have
sorry.
I would say we have the Leaf Marque team that Mollie sits in are responsible for standard setting. So they make the primary changes, and based on the research that we're a part of from the innovation centres, demonstration farms and projects that we do, we as an IFM team feed in sort of best practice into the Leaf Marque team. They make edits, and then it goes to the TAC in public consultation.
And if I came to you as a large buyer of agricultural produce and said to you, I'm interested in having all of my suppliers be LEAF certified, but I want to put in a little bit of nuance for my particular, you can accommodate that.
So that wouldn't occur in the Leaf Marque standard, that occurs in the Leaf Sustainable Farming Review. So to become Leaf Marque certified, you have to have completed the review online. It doesn't matter what your answers are as such, you just have to have gone through it and completed it. But we do work with some retailers exactly like you just suggested, Pat, in that they've added in questions. So if you are a supplier to a certain retailer, a certain group, you have to answer additional questions, and you have to meet certain criteria within those questions. And then you also have to meet the control points within the Leaf Marque standard.
Okay, well, listen, our believe it or not is up.
Bye.
Thank you very much for a really excellent presentation. I think it's generated quite a bit of interest, and I think there will be some follow-up as I mentioned earlier. So thank you, Mollie, and thank you, Rebecca, for your presentation, for succinctly and comprehensively answering a lot of questions that were thrown at you. And thank you, Noel, for your assistance.
Thank you for having us.
Next week, we'll be joined by Lorraine Belaine. Lorraine is a postdoc in agricultural economics based in the rural economy section, and she'll be looking at assessing sustainability on European dairy farms based on case study data. And with that, I will take our leave, wish you a good weekend, and our thanks to Andy Boland and Yvonne Marr. Goodbye, and hopefully we'll see you again next week. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye now.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.